is the Flex Network. Flex on everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Flex Network. I'm your host, Flex Shane. You can follow me on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. I'm joined, of course, by Brendan Adam. You can follow him on Twitter at Brendan D. Adam 19. And Mike graces us with his presence. You can follow him at Mike_Dickinson. Brandon, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. I'm just excited to have Mike back. It's always good to have the ranting and raving of an old man on the pod. We missed it, so let's get after it. It'll be fun.
Dude, I was listening to last week's show in my car, fucking yelling at you too. I'm like, no. And I think people were driving past me. I think they thought that I was on my way to the mental facility, which is probably where I should have gone.
Too funny.
Mike is definitely the old man on the porch saying, "Get off my lawn, you kids." We love it. We wouldn't have it any other way, Mike.
Yeah, I was double booked on birthday parties last week, so instead of being on the show, I was at a soft play and trampoline park with my 5-year-old daughter, surrounded by 5-year-olds. It was actually a lot of fun, but I missed being on the show.
Yeah, well, okay, so we didn't get your take last week. For those who didn't have a chance to watch us, we did round one. We wanted to do multiple rounds, but we made it through one round of a SuperFlex. Yeah, exactly. Of a SuperFlex Dynasty rookie mock. That's like ordering a freaking beverage at Starbucks. And so I'm gonna rehash for the people who didn't have a chance to listen just who we chose in the order. Mike, after we go through this, I'm curious to know your thoughts on it. Anything stuck out to you? Anything crazy? So at 101, I took Breece Hall. Then Brandon went Treylon Burks. Okay, sorry. Breece Hall, running back, Iowa State. Treylon Burks, wide receiver, Arkansas. Number 3 was Isaiah Spiller, Texas A&M, running back. Then it went Drake London, wide receiver, USC. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State. Finally, remember, this is a SuperFlex, people. Kenny Pickett, first QB off the board. Quarterback, Pittsburgh. Malik Willis, quarterback 2, out of Liberty. Then we went Kenneth Walker, running back out of Michigan State. Matt Corral, quarterback out of Ole Miss. Jamison Williams, wide receiver, Alabama. Sam Howell, quarterback, UNC. And finally, George Pickens, wide receiver, Georgia. Mike, roast us. What you got?
I don't think
I know where he's going.
No. I know you think I'm going to grill you for the Drake London thing, but hey, I think that, this early in the process where we don't have landing spots for these quarterbacks in a SuperFlex, I think it's fine. If as these guys test through and then, we know, and this is one of the reasons that in the leagues that I commission, I'm thinking about pushing the rookie draft to before the actual NFL draft. So it kind of forces you to be a little bit more thorough with your process and to be more confident in your guys. So not knowing where Pickett's going to go, not knowing if he's going to play year one, not knowing how teams think about him, it makes perfect sense for him to be down honestly in the middle of the round. The guys that are ahead of him, I'm not as high on Drake London as you are, Brandon. I think that Kenny Golladay is well within his range of outcomes. So I would be a little bit more hesitant on that, but to see those quarterbacks go there, I think it makes perfect sense.
Kenny Golladay was good, man. He had a few seasons.
He was awesome at first. It's not his fault.
He was until he wasn't.
Well, he got
his body fell apart,
and then and look, I mean, the reality is Drake London had an injury, right? What I think was the ankle is what
just an ankle,
season last year. Yeah. So, I mean, these big guys.
It was a catastrophe. It was a catastrophic injury, though. That's something you can't avoid. At least he's not hammy after hammy, pulls. That's a problem.
He could end up being Mike Evans.
And I would take it.
Absolutely. So,
well, he's not as heavy as Mike Evans. He's not as heavy as Mike Evans, but he's number one on some boards. I would say he's pretty definitively a top 3 or 4 wide receiver on most people's boards. The thing that's interesting, and really what Brian and I discussed last week, is we're willing to take a shot, even in a SuperFlex league, on these higher end skill position players versus taking a shot on what we believe to be somewhat questionable quarterbacks. I mean, every single one of these guys have question marks to them, right? You look last year, and there's no perfect prospect ever, right? But I mean, you look at last year, and I'd say after the 2021 season, people were kind of disappointed, right? After the hype of that quarterback class. That's just reality. Now we come and there's, I think, a clear, distinctive drop in the quality of talent this year. And if last year's class disappointed, man, watch out for this year. I could be wrong, but that's just I
don't worry. The best guy hasn't even played yet. Let's just relax.
Oh, here we go.
Trey Lance is on his way.
There you go, baby.
Superman, baby, he's coming.
Let's get into round 2 here, boys.
Right.
I'm excited to see what Mike takes. So let's go round 2, Dynasty rookie mock SuperFlex.
I wasn't ready for the drop. I almost spilled.
Oh
it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So for me, looking at the guys that were left on the board, I think that, seeing those quarterbacks go off, we're at 3 running backs, 4 quarterbacks, 5 wide receivers. So it's been shockingly even. So, looking at who's left, to me, it came down to kind of three guys that I was choosing from. That comes down to Chris Olave, wide receiver from Ohio State, Kyron Williams, the running back from Notre Dame, and last but not least, David Bell, the wide receiver from Purdue. So looking at those 3, to me, Kyron Williams is a little bit too location dependent. Olave kind of ceded ground to Wilson his senior year, so I'm going David Bell, baby.
Oh,
the true alpha from Purdue. You better fucking hope he lands in Arizona so Rondale can be relevant again.
I am so mad at you right now. Oh my God. We were just talking about this prior to the draft. Dang it, man. You ruined my day already. Oh, go ahead. Continue your spill. Go for it.
It was close between him and Olave for me, quite honestly. I think that Olave probably has a higher ceiling. But Bell he's going to vacuum up targets and receptions, and I just think he's going to be a PPR machine. So again, this is setup dependent. If you're in a half-point PPR, I might have gone Olave in that situation.
Yeah,
but I think we're in a full PPR SuperFlex setup. I think Bell is he's the clear choice for me there, and it wasn't particularly close.
Who's your comp? Who do you like him? Like, who do you think he kind of mimics? I've been struggling with it a little bit, but I got a mixture of guys.
I think if he's not big enough to be a Cooper Kupp comp. I think I'm more in like the Deontay Johnson range with just how he maneuvers underneath.
Dude, you are something else, man.
Yeah.
It's just too funny, man. We were talking so much. Yeah.
David Bell
bullshit.
Is significantly larger than Deontay, but you're right. He's a target hog. The one thing he didn't really have in college was the touchdowns. He only had 6 touchdowns as in his junior season, so third year.
Because Rondale was doing that.
Last year Rondale wasn't there, right? But he did.
Year before that.
Yeah, I like David Bell. I think I've heard him comp to Marvin Jones, and look, Marvin Jones had some really productive years in college, and he had double-digit touchdown seasons. So, I mean, to me, Chris Olave. Okay. I'm going to leave my Chris Olave comments until he gets drafted. So David Bell, I like that as the first wide receiver here in round 2. Brandon, you're up, brother.
I am so freaking angry. Oh man. Okay. I mean, you got to go with Olave now. Like that's the clear pick here. I was going to go David Bell 100% if he dropped right here. Olave's the next guy. He's an explosive guy. He scored 13 touchdowns last year on 65 receptions. And that's pretty explosive guy if you look at that, but he did not break 1,000 yards last year. Like that's kind of troubling to me a little bit, but it's what it is, but his explosion is there. Like I get that. I like it. He's like a Tyler Lockett kind of explosive down the field kind of guy. And I actually am okay with that. But as an all around wide receiver, I think he's going to need to put some weight on so he can take some massive hits in the intermediate route range because that's going to happen. So you're the Olave truther. He made me do this. Go for it, Shane.
All right. So one of the reasons that he didn't have the gaudy numbers that we like to see is because he was playing with Garrett Wilson, who we've talked about a lot in this show. He's somebody that he's a separation specialist, but Chris Olave is too. And the thing that I do like about Chris Olave is he is still 6'1". He's 188 pounds, right? I mean, we talk about really 180 is that threshold for me for wide receiver weight. 185 is what I prefer. 188, that's fine. I mean, we'll see. He can probably put on some man weight as he joins the NFL. But he had a 31.8% college dominator rating, and in his best college season, he had a 26% target share and 14.5 yards per reception. So he can still do it. It is closer to the line of scrimmage, but he can do it on pretty much all all sides of the field. And look, he's going to be highly sought after in the NFL draft. Currently, the big boards have him as like the wide receiver 3, which potentially is round 1 draft capital, right? So, right away, Chris Olave is likely going to get the opportunity to play. I think, especially if he comes in. I feel like it's easy to say that a lot of these guys are going to come in as a slot wide receivers, but that's just a reality, right, of the class that we're in right now. So I love it. You guys know how I feel about Chris Olave. To me, he's it's really, it's George Pickens, Chris Olave, David Bell. They're in that tier for me in terms of just guys that have a high-end outcome or high-end upside. George Pickens, I've got just at the top of that tier, but it's very, very close, and I love that pick. So any closing thoughts on that before I move on to my pick?
He's not far off of where Devontae Smith was weight-wise.
Yeah, that's pretty much what if you want to
be, Smith was 170, man. Like Devontae Smith was small.
Yeah, but
did he officially weigh 170? I thought he jumped into the 180s.
No, it was 170. He was. People were worried he was going to be like Marquise Brown, like 166, 167, but he weighed in at 170, which kind of relieved a little bit of that stress. But I mean, okay, not to go on a Devontae Smith tangent, but he did lead, or he had the record for Philadelphia wide receivers in terms of total yards in the season. So Devonta Smith, yes, he didn't have the Jamar Chase season, he didn't have the Jalen Waddle season. Devonta Smith had a good season, and guess what? He played pretty damn healthy throughout most of the season. So all the Devonta Smith haters out there,
no, you can't.
Exactly.
Go away.
Fly kite.
Yeah.
So Michael Yeager, he talked about he's struggling wanting Pickens or Ross. We're gonna get to Ross probably this round, Mike. So we'll get there. But for my pick, as the third pick in round 3, this is a guy that I've kind of struggled with, but the value is there for him. I'm going to take Kyron Williams, running back out of Notre Dame. So here's the thing about Kyron Williams. You can't deny the talent. He is an absolute beast in the reception game, right? So Kyron Williams here, in his last year, he had 42 receptions for 359 yards and 17 total touchdowns. And he still had 1,000 rushing yards with 204 rush attempts. Okay. The year before that, he had 211 rush attempts, 1125 rushing yards, and 35 receptions for 313 yards. He had a 13.3% target share in 2020 and a 10.8% target share in 2021. We talk about 8% as like that threshold. The man knows how to catch the damn ball. The problem is, and I put this out there, I wonder, is he going to be Austin Eckler, like total massive peak upside, right? Or is he going to be like a Kenny Gainwell, where he's just, the fantasy community loves him, but he's under 200 pounds. He's 195 pounds. So is he going to come in? And if he doesn't fall to the right situation where the coach actually knows how to use these damn guys, he's just going to be a satellite back. He's going to be Nyheim Hines. He's going to be Gio Bernard. And yes, both of those guys have shown glimpses, right? Gio Bernard, I think, had a couple good seasons, but you don't know when to start these players. So that's my only concern with Kyron Williams. If he gets round 2 capital or even round 3 capital, I'll be a lot more comfortable, but I just worry about the landing spot. What do you guys think?
I think all your nervousness is relevant for sure. But he's one dude. The guy's a tough SOB for his size. He pass blocks like with better than anybody in this class. He's going to be a pro NFL ready guy right away. It's just, is he going to get the opportunity because of his size, or is he going to are they going to make him prove himself and see what he does? But like, I'm telling you, he's a explosive back. He's a fun guy to watch. I'm curious to see where he's going to fall. Like, I need to know where he goes.
Yeah.
That's
so one thing that does worry me, he did fumble the ball 8 times. In his last season. So that, like, the ball security is obviously an issue. Yeah, but he was a highly recruited athlete out of high school. So in his senior season in high school, he had 2,760 total yards and 40 total touchdowns. And he won the Defensive Player of the Year for his county. So he's a fucking beast, man. I mean, the talent is there. It's always about landing spot with these types of prospects, right? So that's the only thing that brings me some concern. Look, if he goes to the combine, which is March 1st, right? We are less than a week away from the combine. If he blows up the combine, moves up that draft stock, baby, I'm on board.
Okay.
Mike,
here's a question for you. Can't he be Kenny Gainwell and Austin Eckler? Because Austin Eckler wasn't Austin Eckler in the first 2 years that he was
exactly. Not until the whole thing was turned over.
Well, Austin Eckler was undrafted, wasn't he?
And then Lombardi got there.
Yes.
Like those were the two things that needed to come together. Because Brandon, you remember I was out on Eckler the first year that Gordon was out of there, and I was in on him last year. So it was very much scheme dependent. So I think when you're looking at these guys, I think you're 100% right. Like the Gainwell comp is valid. It plays.
Mm-hmm. It is.
If he ends up in Jacksonville, that terrifies me for both Williams and for Travis because of the way that Peterson uses his backs. But like,
do not put that into the universe.
Shut up.
Do not put that into the universe.
I'm just saying. But if he ends up somewhere like, say he ends up in New Orleans and Kamara gets hurt, like he could fill that role. He's obviously not Kamara, but like he could step into that type of role.
Yeah, so he could do some damage.
If Kyron Williams can come in at like 200 pounds at the combine next week, and he gets day 2 draft capital, whether it's round 2, he probably won't go round 2, but maybe round 3, right? And he goes to the right situation. So I know like a lot of ifs. I'm on board. You can't deny the talent. It's just if he goes to a shitty, old, crusty coaching staff that doesn't give him an opportunity to show what he does, like if he goes to like a San Francisco type, like that's just obviously a cliche at this point, but like Shanahan knows how to use his running backs to get the most out of them. That's what the sort of situation he needs. So that's it. That's my only hesitation. Who you got, Mike, for your next pick?
All right. So my next pick.
Oh,
no. Oh, he's gone.
Yeah, we losing him. We losing Mike.
We lost him.
We lost him. I'm not sure because I'm out in the boonies today recording. So
now you're muted.
This is beautiful.
No.
Am I good now?
Now you're good.
Fantastic.
Go for it. 100% now. Go ahead.
So anyway, so I thought about this guy at the 201, but because of the certainty that I feel would go, the likelihood that he hits as a prospect, I pushed this down. I also knew how you guys had your board stacked, so I am going Desmond Ritter right here.
Oh,
I knew it.
Woof. I mean,
go ahead.
Say what?
Totally fine.
Yeah, the fourth pick in round 2 of a SuperFlex, that's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Listen, so I think that the one thing that you're looking at with all these guys, and he's as a QB5, fourth pick, round 2 in a SuperFlex league, I don't know that his range of outcomes is any different than the 2 guys that went ahead of him. Depending on where Willis lands, I think Willis will have a different career than a guy like Ritter or Pickett will have. I think that you're going to see Willis have a career more closely akin to what, if he can't get his mechanics right, you're going to see him have a career that more mimics what Cam Newton had, where he was really, really bright, and when he flamed out fast. I think that Ritter projects more as a traditional pocket passer. He's a really quick processor. He's progressed all 3 years that he was there, between his junior and senior year, and now in the run-up to the draft. He worked with Jordan Palmer last offseason, and he's working with Jordan Palmer this offseason. For those of you that don't know, I'm sure that everybody listening to this pod knows, but Jordan Palmer is the brother of Carson Palmer, who obviously we know who he was, but Jordan Palmer is the one who is largely credited with getting Josh Allen's mechanics fixed. So and I'm not saying that Ritter is Allen by any stretch. He's not as big as Allen is. He's 6'4", he's only 215. He's got to put on some weight, but he's mobile. He's quick enough where you have to account for him, but he processes quickly enough where he can operate in an NFL offense day one. So if you see him go somewhere where, and he'll probably go back half of round 1, you see him go to a quarterback needy team, you're going to have to wait on him this year. Like I think that him going to Detroit 31 overall is a perfect landing spot. Jared Goff will play there, let Ritter learn it. And then, Detroit's probably going to take a receiver early. So now you got Ritter with Swift, Hawkinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then whoever Detroit takes early. So I like him. I like his progression. I like the way that he's grown. I like the way that he showed out. And I think that his stock is going to continue to rise. I think he could end up as the QB1 in this class, which isn't saying a lot because it's not a great class, but I think that that's well within his range. I get, and I'm not saying that he is him. I get the same feeling about him that I was getting from Justin Herbert 2 years ago. So it was clear that it was Burrow and Tua. They were the top two choices that year that they were coming out. Herbert kind of came on late. He had some knocks. He always had the arm strength, but he hadn't been consistent, hadn't had a hugely consistent career. And obviously when he got to the NFL, he far exceeded all expectations. I'm not saying that Ritter is going to do what Herbert did in his rookie season, and I'm not necessarily saying that his ceiling is what Herbert's ceiling is. I'm saying that I get the same feeling about him that I got watching Herbert. Like I felt like there came a point in a draft. It was like a June draft, and I was very close to taking Herbert over Tua, but I was like, no. Tank for Tua was a thing for a reason. He's gonna get it figured out. The hip injury won't slow him down. And looking back, I wish I had trusted my gut and taken Herbert there. So that's kind of where I'm at with Ritter.
I mean, you said pretty much everything that I would have said. When he looks good, he looks amazing. When he looks bad, it's kind of nasty. It's kind of scary to watch. So if he can get that cleaned up, he's one of these players where I don't think he's around. I mean, he's not going to be a year one starter for sure, right? If a team wants to take a shot on him, like a Kellen Mond type player, where let's just see what we got with him, right? And maybe like Atlanta drafts this guy, right? Like that's the kind of landing spot that I can see where maybe they'll move on with Matt Ryan in a year or two. Maybe they can get some. Maybe they could trade him. The thing about Desmond Ritter that it's funny because when you're talking about his rushing ability, he's not super quick. Like he's not a Malik Willis type, but he's like Justin Herbert in that he might rush 3-4 times in a game to pick up that first down. And it's still something that defenses will have to account for. So he's not Mac Jones mobility, like just the real statue quarterback. He's got a little bit more mobility to that, but he also has the big banana bushel hands. He's got 10-inch hands, which, you can't compare that to Kenny Pickett. And it's like, all right, he's got a lot of those measurables that you just like in a quarterback. And if he can improve those mechanics, maybe not in year one, but in the middle of round two to go and get this, like a quarterback like this that has the upside, that's where Jalen Hurts was going, was the middle of round two in SuperFlex leagues when he was a rookie. So I don't hate this pick. We were talking
he ran
about
for 700 yards his sophomore and junior year. He didn't run for he didn't run that much this year because he threw more.
Yeah, that's a roster watch, isn't the big banana bushel hands. I can't take credit for that one, but absolutely. All right, Brandon, who you got?
Okay, this is where I'm going to shake the draft a little bit. This is I've been pushing just because of position scarcity in this draft. I think there's only a certain amount of people in the running back position, and I love me some Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier, his size is perfect. 5'11", 220. Has when he was playing the last year with Zach Wilson, he had an average. Each carry was 7.5 yards a carry, but once Zach Wilson left, with that threat, it dropped down to 5.8. So I'm going back to when there was actual threat of the passing game. His yards per carry were amazing. This year he had 276 attempts for 1,600 yards for 23 touchdowns. He was the offense. He's actually a decent catcher of the football with 28 catches with 199 yards, 7.1 a catch. No touchdowns with that, but I think that will come. I just feel like he is a tough, hard-nosed, runs low, can be a 3-down workhorse if you need him to be. I just feel a lot of James Conner-esque with him when I'm watching him play. I think he's going to be a stud, and if he falls in the right position, man, I like him a lot. I just feel I'm just going off pure talent. I think he's the better runner between him and Jerome Ford and Rashad White. Inside the tackles, I think he can get it done. I think that linebacker mentality that he played with, he just plays with a hard-nosed mentality, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, shit. So Tyler Algier in college this last year, he had 1,601 total rushing yards, which was third in the NCAA, and he had 23 total touchdowns, which was tied for first in the NCAA. So in terms of pure accounting stats, he's got those. He checks the box.
Yeah.
In terms of his size, he's 5'11", 220 pounds, so he can take hits. In terms of his reception prowess, he already touched on his 20 receptions for 199 yards. That was a 10% target share, right? Again, we want that 8 to 10% target share. So the man can do it on all assets and all facets.
Yep.
I don't know, in just my opinion, in terms of the short yardage, I think Jerome Ford's a little bit stronger in the short yardage situations. But, I mean, 23 touchdowns, might say
can't argue
so, yeah, I mean, we were talking about it before the show, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder here, but I really have Rachaad White, Jerome Ford, and Tyler Algier right in that same bucket, that same tier for me. Again, I mean, we can pretty much caveat every single prospect that we're talking about next week when he's at the combine and he tests blah, 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 right? If he tests well, Tyler Algier, man, could absolutely have day 2 capital. And
we just
want draft capital for these running backs because that creates opportunity. I like it. What do you say, Mike?
Thank you.
Yeah, Brandon, you actually turned me on to him. So the more I've looked at him and the more I've read about him and, watched him a little bit, the more I like him as well. I think, again, landing spot is great. It would be awesome to see him land somewhere like Tennessee,
Buffalo.
Buffalo's dicey, man. I don't know. Like, I don't want to see him in a split. I want to see him somewhere where he can take the whole thing. So like Tennessee, Henry drops off a cliff this year, which is entirely possible. You see Algier take that. And now I don't know if Tennessee would do that because of what they got out of Deontay Foreman, but I think that's somewhere where he could be highly impactful. I think somewhere like Seattle. Seattle has had running back issues forever. If he goes there, I think that would be awesome. We know how Pete Carroll loves to run the football. I think he'd be great in that offense.
Yep. I like it. It's honestly, we're not knowing where he's going. A lot of this stuff, especially with these RBs, like if they go to certain spots, things can change. But I just think of purely off talent and the way the dude runs and actually runs. I mean, he doesn't mess around, man. Like his pad level is appropriate for how he runs. And he runs through people's faces like Marshawn Lynch. That's who
he was a linebacker
does.
when he was in high school.
Exactly, and he played linebacker for Brigham Young and for a season as well. So
you know who else was a linebacker in high school? Someone named Javonte Williams.
Yes, sir. Yes,
that's why they run very similarly. Like, but break tackles that hard running style.
Yeah, I like it, man.
Yeah, I don't have Mike Yeager. I don't have the broken tackles and yards after contact, but I do know he was up there in broken tackles. So absolutely, that was. I mean, he wasn't quite a Kenneth Walker in broken tackles, but he was certainly up there. Yeah. Yep. All right. I love Tyler Algier. So this to me, for my next pick here, it's really a discussion of position, okay? Because there is a smattering of wide receivers here that are all pretty similar in terms of how I would tier them and potential upside. There's really one tight end prospect here. So do I want to pivot to the tight end with Trey McBride, or do I want to plant my flag on one of these other running backs, which again, we talked about Jerome Ford, Rachaad White. So for me, just going simply by my rankings as of today, I'm going to go with Jerome Ford, running back out of Cincinnati, for my next pick.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Nothing crazy.
It's appropriate.
Out. It's appropriate. Yeah. So, okay. So the thing about Jerome Ford is he is a great runner of the ball, right? Where this man is going to really make his hay in the NFL is probably on first and second down and hopefully as the goal line back. He's 5'11", 215 pounds. He averaged 6.6 yards per carry in college, which is pretty fantastic, but he's not as elusive as you'd like. So really, he's not going to be on the field for 3 downs. Now I say that in college, he did have 21 receptions for 220 yards. And really, I mean, it's like 20, 25 receptions in a season. Like that's what you kind of look for. He had 20 total touchdowns for 1,315 rushing yards on 215 attempts. So again, Jerome Ford, this is just positional scarcity. I feel like he has the talent to go and put up 7, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns in a season, but it's probably going to be in a committee type situation. But look, the reality of 2022 and the NFL to win right now is that there's not a lot of just pure workhorse 3-down backs in the NFL anymore, right? So you need to get these high-end running backs that can score you touchdowns. So whether it's a Tyler Algier or a Jerome Ford, these are the types of players we're going to take shots on. And then this stage in the draft, guys, it's a matter of, do you want to take a shot on one of these high or middle end wide receivers, or go for the absolute fire and try to get one of these running backs? So yeah, I don't love it. I don't hate it. At this range of the draft, I'm pretty happy with it though.
Yeah.
Brandon, you're up. Oh, excuse me, Mike, you're up.
Mike's up.
Yep. So I think that the choice here is pretty clear for me. Looking at who's left, we are in, starting to get into tier 3 running back, tier 3 wide receiver, and there's one name that clearly sticks up ahead of everybody else for me, and that's Trey McBride. So this is interesting. I've always made a point of emphasizing tight end and being proactive with tight ends. I feel like tight ends are a position that gets lost a lot when people are looking at roster construction, just because they think it's a throwaway. They think I can always go and get a tight end. I can stream a tight end. And I've always you can't necessarily, if you know what you're doing and you know how to do it, you can probably do decently well at it. But I've always liked to lean into those soft spots, and I think the tight end is a soft spot. So, to be 3 or 4 spots early on somebody like Trey McBride, who has tight end 1 within, not the tight end 1, he can be a solid tight end 1 for 5, 6, 7 years in the NFL within his range of outcomes. I think it makes sense to jump at this point rather than take a shot on somebody who may or may not wash out or work out as a prospect, whether it be a wide receiver or a running back. You look at what he did. 2020, he only played 4 games. He had a 71% dominator rating, accounted for 100% of his team's touchdowns, and then he followed it up last year. I think, I'm analog here, pen and paper. Yeah, so last year he was 1,125 receiving yards, 37% of his team's total passing production, targeted on 30% of his routes runner, had a 94.7 PFF passing grade. So, he's 6'3", 250. He's big. He's not big enough where he can't move. He's got to get a little bit better at separation, got to get a little bit more physical running his routes, but I mean, he's badass.
Yeah. So the question, or Mike's more of a comment, I should say, is that his worry about taking a tight end here is just the ability to break out, right? I mean, like, not everybody's going to be Kyle Pitts. It takes 2 to 3 years. You're absolutely right. The thing is that Trey McBride, Mike, honestly, Mike Yeager, he really does prospect similar to like a Pat Freiermuth. So he really could. I mean, shit, man. Like, tight end is so top heavy that if you can roll the dice, if you can roll the dice with Trey McBride here in the middle of the second round, and he gets you 7-8 touchdowns on the season, that's a win, baby. He probably will only get you 700 reception yards, but all we really care about when we're rolling the dice for tight end is those touchdowns. So I love it. So full disclosure, in terms of my actual just total rankings, I actually have Trey McBride ahead of the guy that we just chose.
Yep.
But sometimes you got to just kind of plant your flag and figure out how do you want to assemble your team, and you're going to take the upside with the tight end. But he's the 10 and 1 to the class. I think that's pretty definitive, and he's at that minimum 250 pounds. He's going to be a great tight end. Now, is he going to be a great fantasy tight end? Time will tell. I like the pick though. Brandon, what do you got?
So I gotta get, before this guy falls off the map here, if I don't take him here, then our rankings kind of mess up. So I think Jahan Dodson is the next guy off the board. It has to be him. 146 targets last year, 91 catches, almost 1,200 yards with 12 touchdowns, average of 13 yards a catch. He is somebody that has nice size, speed, and agility. I think he can actually be a solid wide receiver 2 for a team. I don't know if he's going to be an alpha per se, but I think he can actually help out a offense quite a bit with what he does. He catches the football outside of his frame. He does quite well with that. Goes up in the air when he wants to. Does everything you need. I actually like him a lot. Had a 29% target share for his team. He was the guy, and I think it's appropriate for his slot right here.
Yeah, man. Jahan Dodson, wide receiver out of Penn State, 5'11", 183 pounds. So he's on the lighter side, but he's quick, right? He's shifty. He's a Kadarius Toney type in terms of his play.
That's
He's explosive. Yeah. So I mean, I like it. The spot here. We talked about it before the show. I have now officially moved another wide receiver ahead of Jahan Dodson, but he is my 9th ranked wide receiver on the board currently. I like that pick. He had a 44.3% college dominator rating, and he opted out of the Senior Bowl for a reason. I mean, big boards have him as early to mid round 2 right now, which that's fantastic draft capital for a wide receiver.
Yep.
Any thoughts on that, Mike?
I love it. He's right at the top of that tier 3, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it was appropriate. I didn't want to take. I'm not a big guy on him. I wanted to take somebody else, but it would have been inappropriate to take him right here. So, Dotson's the one to take for this draft.
So, all right. So this is now a strategic question for me, right?
Here
so I
comes,
have a running back that's again right in the same class as some of these wide receivers, but I'm almost like is the guy that I want to plant my flag on get a fall to me because I know Brandon was watching some tape on him this morning. So I'm just going to say, fuck it. I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to go. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go Skye Moore, reaching a little bit, wide receiver out of Western Michigan. Now, this is about knowing your draft room, okay? I probably could have gotten him a little bit later, but this is the guy that I want on my team. Skye Moore, man. I've started to deep dive more into this player comp, and he is somebody that I am absolutely willing to take a shot on. Okay, so he's 21 years old, which it's not bad for a wide receiver. He's thick. He is 5'9", 195 pounds. His college dominator rating was 44.8%. He had a 39.5% college target share in his best year and 13.6 yards per carry. In terms of a comparable, if you're just looking at him and you're saying, okay, you know that Spider-Man gif, who does he look like? Who does he remind me of? Body type is Stephon Diggs, it's CeeDee Lamb, maybe Judy or Bateman, okay? I've heard him comped to Jarvis Landry. And the thing that I like about this guy is that when he was in high school, he played quarterback and he played DB. It's funny because Brandon was saying he doesn't like him because he looks like a DB when he's out there. Well, because he played a damn DB when he was in high school, right? So
his body just looks like a goddamn DB. I'm just like, what the hell? And it just looks awkward to me, but the production doesn't lie. Like, it's just what it is.
Exactly. He's quick. He's projected to run around a 4.3 at the combine next week. So if he's quick, he's shifty, he's thick. He's one of these guys. He's got reliable hands. Okay. So we only had 4 drops on 125 targets in 2021. And when he was targeted, the QBR rating for the quarterback was 116.2 throughout his college career. So he's fast, he's reliable, he's shifty, he's thick. He's not quite at that high BMI, but he's a 28.8 BMI. He's everything that I love in a wide receiver. I think Skye Moore, man, he's going to move up boards. And and yes, Mike. I actually in that Underworld or roster watch mock, I chose Skye, and of course I had to say in my description, "Sky's the limit." It's what you got to do, man. Come on now, you have to say that. Look, we're all dads, man. You got to break out the dad jokes. This is who we are. This is just what we're gonna do. So I don't care what you guys say. I love Skye Moore here, but Mike, what do you think about Skye Moore? I know what Brandon.
No, I think it's great. I mean, it's all about where you have these guys. It's all about A, knowing your draft room, B, looking at your team, and C, where you have these guys slotted, where you have them tiered. So he's in that tier for me. So if that's where you have him, I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, Mike. Last pick of the round. Excuse me.
Of the round. All right. So I got 2 or 3 guys that I'm currently milling around in my brain at this point in time. Carson Strong is not one of them. So take that out of there. So I'm looking. The 3 guys that I'm currently going back and forth between are Jalen Tolbert, Justin Ross, and Rachaad White.
Here it is.
So I think that if it was 2021, I don't think that Rachaad White would even be in the conversation, but because of the emergence of Cordero Patterson and Deebo Samuel, the kind of wide back that we're at the position that Deebo Samuel completely made up, which I give him a ton of credit for. I think that he's somebody that you have to consider right here. So
is that your pick? Rachaad White official? Is it official, Mike?
So I think I'm going to
pull the damn trigger. Come on.
Yes, that is my pick. That is my pick right here. So I'm going to take him. The thing that scares you is that his floor is really, really low, but his ceiling, if he lands with the right OC and the right head coach and the right quarterback, is extremely high. Like, I don't think Cordero Patterson even thought he was he was 2021 Cordell Patterson 18 months ago. So, to kind of be talking about this hybrid role, he's 6'2". He runs with his pads too high. He's good in between the tackles. He's fast, but he was averaging over, I think he was at like 7.5 a touch this year, and he was 13.3% of his team's receptions this year. Which running backs, you want him in the 8 to 9 range. We say 8 to 9, that's money. So pushing into that 13
crazy
range. Yeah, coming out of the backfield, like that's a lot. So that's what forced me to look into him a little bit more and to kind of work that comp up. So if he lands in the right spot, it's a hedge at this point. It's a hedge that someone will fall in love with him, and he's somebody that a team will have to fall in love with to take and to scheme him up. That's really what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to scheme him touches the way that Shanahan and Smith scheme up touches for their guys. So I'm going with White there. As the RB6, I mean, I think he represents pretty good value as the RB6 in this draft. Or the RB7, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, look, so to your point, he's 6'2", and he looks 6'2" when he runs with the ball, but he's quick, he's elusive, he's got good feet, and he makes smooth cuts. He shined at the Senior Bowl without pads, right? He's the type of player that shines because he looks electric, in the underwear, right? In the underwear Olympics, I think he's going to do well at the combine next week. So the one thing that I will caution you on is that he had the 3rd ranked offensive line in 2021, and you're right, he's going to be really heavily landing spot dependent, and he's projecting to be a day 3 pick. So more than a lot of other players at this stage of the draft, he's going to be landing spot dependent. But I have him again right in that Jerome Ford, Rashad White, Tyler Algier tier, because they're all going to be landing spot dependent. So I like that pick. I don't have any issues with that. He was my next highest rate player off the board. Brandon, last pick of the round.
All right. I think you got to go with John Melchie, Alabama. He's John Mitchie or whatever his name is. He's Melchie. 21 years old. Last year he had 96 receptions on 133 targets. That's pretty great on that team, especially with Jameson Williams being there as well. For 1,142 yards and had a target share of 23%. That's quite great, and had a 72% catch rate. That's what popped to me. He has a very high catch rate, 8 touchdowns. He can get it done, and I'm excited to see what he can do as a wide receiver 2 in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be the number 1 per se, but I think he's going to, like I said, in this second round, we're going to have a lot of guys that aren't going to be like the wide receiver 1s for teams, but like they're going to create whoever they land with they're going to create a lot of opportunity for that wide receiver 1 as well to help out. It's going to be a lot of elite wide receiver 2s in this second round, but John, he has that explosiveness that I like to see, and he played for Alabama.
Yeah, so John Mechie, I like him a lot. I mean, look, he only had played 13 games last year because he had the ACL injury. So you worry a little bit about him not being able to test and just where NFL teams are going to trust drafting him. But look, before he was injured, he actually led Alabama in terms of total receiving yards. So he had, through 13 games, 96 receptions for 1,142 yards, 23% target share, and eight touchdowns, which is pretty damn good. I like John Mechie here. It's funny because, he's somebody you have to highlight because he's injured. But if he wasn't, he would probably be, I'd say, high round 2. Like he'd be in the George Pickens discussion.
He would have been right there with the Olave. Like he would have been right there. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So I like that pick. I mean, he's right. The player that I'm going to take next, I have ranked 1 slot ahead of him. But that's just, again, I'm going for the upside on that. And Mike Yeager, you sitting down, brother? Because it's going to be Justin Ross with the 65th pick of the NFL draft. The Jacksonville Jaguars select Justin Ross, wide receiver, Clemson.
Look, that's a nice pick. Like I considered it. It's just he's got real injury stuff, like real.
Well, he does, but he did play last year, right? So he for those who don't know, he missed an entire season because of a neck injury, right? Like it was potentially career ending, but he did play last year on the abysmal. Like I think Mike Yeager was playing quarterback for the Clemson Tigers last year because they were absolutely shite. But last year he did still put up 47 receptions, 524 yards. He was a beast in 2019 when Clemson won the national championship. So at this point, the man is, let me just pull up the stats here. The man is 6'4", 205 pounds. Okay. He had a breakout age of 18.7, and in his best season, he had a 30% college dominator rating. I think just like George Pickens, Justin Ross has a talent where if he didn't have the injury questions, look, one of the big things next week in Indy is not just the combine, right? The testing metrics. It's also the health. I mean, they've got it's a hospital pretty much at the NFL combine. And if he tests well, and if an NFL team is confident enough to draft him in day 2, man, I think the sky's the limit for John Ross. Or excuse me, Justin Ross. We don't want John Ross.
The sky is not the limit for John Ross.
No, fuck, he's buried.
We could have told you that. We could have told every NFL GM that before he was drafted not to do that.
Man, before I knew what I know now, I mean, John Ross was just somebody that like he was exciting to watch, right? But as I've dived further into like the analytics, you realize, okay, there's a reason that he busted. Like you could have just like you could argue like Henry Ruggs even before he, you know, what happened, he was a bust. But it's just that prototype is just stupid to draft so high. But Justin Ross, I like him. All right.
That's it. Right. That's the round, right?
That's it. Mike's got no take on Justin Ross.
No, I like it. He cleared from the neck injury in August. Clemson cleared him to play. So I think that shouldn't be an issue. I'm more concerned about the foot. He had a foot fracture that limited him a little bit this year. So we'll see how that clears. But from a talent standpoint, he was outperforming T. Higgins when they were there. So now that just could have been strictly developmental. But from a raw talent standpoint, he is extremely.
He's there. I considered him.
Yeah, and I think that he's completely medical dependent. So I think if he clears medical at the combine, and a team's willing to take a shot on him in the second round, I think that he bumps up to be a mid to early round 2 guy. Looking at the guys that went, I would probably consider him over Ritter. I think that you would, depending on your roster setup and your league setup, I think you would have to consider him, maybe over Kyron Williams as well.
Yeah. Like he's got that trait. He's got the traits, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike's saying that he thinks it was a Liz Frank. I'm actually not sure what he dealt with this year, to be honest with you. But I mean, he could be an early round 2, like dynasty draft pick for us, or he could be as late as round 3 if his testing isn't great at the combine next week. Look, I don't know what we're going to do next week, if we're going to go and talk combine, or if we're going to do round 3 of this draft, but just a few honorable mentions that were not drafted today, but I feel like we need to bring them up. Jalen Tolbert, wide receiver out of South Alabama. He's somebody that we need to keep an eye on. He was at the Senior Bowl. He was pretty much the de facto wide receiver 1 at the Senior Bowl, but we've seen this story before, so let's see how Jalen Tolbert does. Christian Watson, same deal, right? An absolute beast at an NDSU wide receiver. And then you got to mention Carson Strong. So getting Carson Strong in round 3, SuperFlex, like that's a pure upside play. We've talked about Carson Strong at length, at nauseum almost. He's slow. He's dealt with injuries. But hey, man, he's still a quarterback in SuperFlex. So, and then the last one is just Jalen Weidermeyer, the tight end of the Texas A&M, and then Wan'Dale Robinson.
That's the one I was talking about. Yeah,
there's honorable mentions. So, I mean, I'm not sure if we'll get to it next week, but we're certainly going to go and go deeper as we go along the dynasty season. But I think next week we're going to just be chomping at a bit to talk about the combine and the results of the combine. So that's probably going to be the focus of the show next week. But just real quick, guys, before we close out here, I'm just going to quickly recap for those who are joining late how we drafted in round 2. Okay, so round 2, we had David Bell, wide receiver out of Purdue, Chris Olave, wide receiver out of Ohio State, Kyron Williams, running back out of Notre Dame, Desmond Ritter, quarterback out of Cincinnati, Tyler Algier, running back out of BYU, Jerome Ford, running back out of Cincinnati, Trey McBride, tight end, Colorado State, Jahan Dodson, wide receiver, Penn State, my boy, Skye Moore, wide receiver, Western Michigan, Rashad White, running back, Arizona State, John Melchie, wide receiver, Alabama, and finally, Justin Ross, wide receiver out of Clemson. That was round 2.
Dude, I think it's appropriate.
I like it, man. Yeah, and here's the thing, right? People were shitting on this class. I think this is an average rookie class. It's an average rookie class. The problem is the quarterbacks, there's no sizzle there. And the high-end elite, like there's no Jamar Chases that are just lighting this class on fire. But we got some sexy players at the top, and it's very flat. If you have, honestly, a round 2 pick is good, and then even an early round 3 pick. A few of the players that we talked about just at the end of the show here, if you want to take a dart throw at, it's really, I mean, pretty much after, I would argue after Christian Watson, it's a pretty steep fall when you're looking at Carson Strong, Dameon Pierce, Jalen Wiedemeyer. But those guys could hit. So I don't know. Mike, what do you think? You missed last week. You're here this week. You've clearly gone down the rabbit hole.
Throw Khalil Shakir into that. I know you guys mentioned him last week. Throw him in that honorable mention too. I saw, not that I have, he's not nearly big enough, but I saw JJ Zachariason, late round QB. He comped him to Cooper Kupp, which I don't know that I've seen that. But if that's who a guy like that's competent to, he's at least worth a look. And you could do a lot worse in round 3 if he ends up being 65% of them. So I think that by and large with this class, you're going to have to find your guy and plant your flag on him and take him and commit to him and just understand how landing spot is going to affect it and understand your league setup. I think, more so than any, and especially round 2 and beyond, like round 1, the talent's the talent, it's kind of, those guys are all pretty sure who's going to go in round 1. Once you get into round 2, 3, 4 this year, I think that every draft room is going to be completely different. You could have guys go, mid round 2 and 1 that drop to the beginning of the 4th in the next one, depending on the makeup of your league and how much work guys and girls have put in. So, this is kind of where you separate yourself. Even at the top end, only 50% of guys that are consensus top 18 draft hit. So after that, you drop down to the 20 to 30%. So they're all dart throws, they're all lottery tickets, they're all flyers at that point anyway. So do your work and get your guy. Yeah.
That's all it's about. Like, honestly, who wants to draft guys? Like, I would have been, honestly, if I was in this draft, I would have been pissed I had to take Olave just because I don't have, he's not my guy. Like I'm doing it just because it's appropriate, but like Tyler Algier is one of my dudes. I'm going to be getting him as much as I can because I just like the player and I like him. And I think if you get him in mid-range second, why not? Like, get the guys you like a lot. But you're right though. Justin Ross, man, like that guy is going to be, if he clears everything and does, well at the comp, it's all there. Like, it really is. And I'm excited to see what happens with him. He could be a steal of the draft if he falls in the right situation. That's going to be good.
One last thing I'm going to say about the rookies. Okay, if you guys dabble in the sweet, beautiful art of best balls, which I've done, I think I've been like 8 or 9 already, which is disgusting. This is the time now before the combine. Jump in some of these best balls, because if you have a strong take on any of these rookies at all, you're getting insane value on them. Okay. Now is the time. Obviously, anytime really before the NFL draft is going to be good because we don't know landing spot. You're banking on upside. But after the combine, after we've got some real measurables for these players, it's going to be, they're just going to continue to move up. As the hype goes up, so will the draft stock. So now is the time. Go jump in some underdog best balls. They sponsor everybody pretty much except for us. So one of these days, Underdog is going to sponsor the Flex Network, but we're not quite there yet.
We'll get it.
All right. We'll get there. Brandon, where do the good people find you?
Brandon D. Adam 19 on Twitter, and give us a shout out. And a lot's going on in the world. We think about everything overseas. Let's push for freedom across and abroad, boys. That's what we want.
That's right, Mike.
Same platform, different handle. Mike_Dickinson. Come talk. We'll talk whatever you want. We'll talk restaurants. Mm-hmm. We'll talk Web 3.0. We'll talk fantasy football. We'll talk whatever you want to talk.
Oh God. I saw a TikTok video on Web 3 and what Web 3 is now, man. I guess I'm getting old, so I didn't know this Web 3 thing existed, but hey man, it's here. So yeah, I mean, I'm Flex Shane. You can follow me at the Flex Network 1. We don't like to get into politics and that sort of thing because people come to these shows to escape it. But for all those people who are in Ukraine, our hearts are out to you guys. The world is thinking about you, and we pray that there's going to be a resolution sooner rather than later. So with that, for Brandon, for Mike, I'm Flex Shane, and we are the Flex Network.
This is the Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody.